I have a greater interest in my appointees not being corrupt than any critic could possibly have. Try me. Produce the evidence to back the allegation and see what the reaction will be. But I think it is also worth pointing out that we should be careful about the new trend that appears to be emerging, whereby any allegation, no matter how spurious, quickly gains the character of, quote, a scandal or, quote, an act of corruption, even when it is shot down. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I should not omit from this accounting the disgraceful behavior of some members of my party, the New Patriotic Party, which has become known as vigilantism. I believe there is no longer any argument that criminal behavior wears no political colors and is solely to be dealt with by the police. I pray that we have seen the last of it. We're continuously working to ensure that it does not recur, that we uphold the rule of law. Members of the media, free senior high school is now a reality. The first batch of students to be enrolled under the scheme has finished one term and gone back to school after the Christmas break. If it has taken the introduction of free SHS to encourage media and other commentators to find the many problems that bedevil our schools, I simply take it as one more reason to cheer the free SHS. We shall work systematically to solve the problems, not just of the senior high schools, but from the kindergartens to the junior high schools as well. We shall put greater emphasis on technical, agricultural, and vocational training and skills training in general. We have no choice but to educate and train our workforce to match the needs of the modern economy of the 21st century. This is only possible if we prioritize and accelerate the development and application of science, technology, and innovation, and also develop the capacity to design and manufacture machines, parts, and tools for ourselves. The two ministries of education and environment, science, technology, and innovation are working together to step up the development and application of appropriate technologies to solve the variety of problems that confront us at this stage of our country's development. This is to be supported with a national strategy to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM education throughout our educational system and stimulate the interest of our pupils and students, especially girls, in science, technology, and innovation. I'm still working to achieve gender parity, or at least reach the percentage promised in the MPP manifesto. In the meantime, I wish to encourage all to support the He for She campaign to help us achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5. After a year in office, it would be fair to ask what frustrations and regrets, if any, that I have. My answer would be, I wish we had been able to do certain things much faster and the entire government machinery move more quickly, because as I said, I'm in a hurry. For those who continue to be obsessed by the size of my government, let me, with due deference to the chairperson of the economic management team, my brilliant vice president, cite from his speech 2 days ago at Lagos at the opening of the New Year's school. And I quote, "The question that we should ask is how can you inherit a budget deficit of 9.3% of GDP, proceed to reduce taxes, bring down inflation, bring down interest rates, increase economic growth from 3.6% to 7.9%, increase your international reserves, maintain relative exchange rate stability, reduce the debt to GDP ratio and the rate of debt accumulation, pay almost half of arrears inherited, stay current on obligations to statutory funds, restore teacher and nursing training allowances, double the capitation grant, implement free senior high school education, and yet still be able to reduce the fiscal deficit from 9.3% to an estimated 5.6% of GDP. Quite simple. This is a remarkable achievement, and this is what we mean by competent economic management, unquote. It is that competence, coupled with integrity in the conduct of public transactions, ensuring value for money, protecting the public purse, that are going to bring the dream of a happy and prosperous Ghana, a Ghana beyond aid, quickly within our grasp.
I thought I'd use this opportunity to ask a question that one of my listeners sent to me. They can't be here, so I'd best represent them as well as I can. And I quote.
You don't have a question of your own. You're just... So you have to choose whether your listener's question or your own.
I'll be honest.
Not begin two.
I'll be honest. I have many questions for you, Mr. President.
So
but I choose to ask the question of my listener.
That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
Thank you. And I quote: "Could you please ask the president this? When he formed his government, he said he needed 110 ministers to run the country. 1 year on, does he still think 110 is the magic number, or is he finally ready to trim the fat?" That's from Joe Ponu of Nsawam.
The answer about the 110 is the same as I gave at the beginning. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let us see the performance of the government. So far, I believe the government is performing well. That's my assessment. You may have a different assessment, but that is my assessment, and that is the justification for the numbers that there are. They were brought in to do a job, not just to fill offices, and I believe that they are doing a good job. So that's my response.
Sadia, and I represent Pan-African Television. My question to you, Your Excellency. After your famous homosexual interview on Al Jazeera, a lot of such persons have surfaced in the media. Now, my question to you is that was it a conspiracy theory to call for such persons to collate for an onward passage of a legal instrument to back the act?
Pan-African TV. First of all, Pan-African TV, I'm not involved in conspiracies. I'm not part of any conspiracy to promote anything. I think that these are matters in the public domain, and people are entitled to agitate as they wish. I hear the other day the Peace Council also came up, but I'm not part, and there's no concerted, synchronized, certainly attempt on my part to promote the advocacy of it.
Mr. President, some still feel unsatisfied about your quest to fight corruption. How do you convince such people that your quest to fight corruption is genuine? Thank you.
What do I need to fight corruption to convince people? Well, I think the presentation I made, already indicated some. In fact, I think that the position that I've taken is potentially quite could lead me into a lot of problems, which is to say that any allegation that is made against any appointee of mine will be investigated. And that opens you up to having to investigate even the flimsiest and irresponsible allegations that are made. And you can find the, I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to comment, but like, for instance, what is going on in the parliament now? The whole of a parliament is being recalled, and all the machinery of parliament cranked up to look into this cash for, I don't know. the main figure, I'm showing this as an example, the main figure in the one who won the award. I'm showing this to indicate how also this issue of investigating everything can sometimes lead to the person who won the expatriate for the business person has been a client of mine for over 35, nearly 40 years. His father was a good friend of my own father, and he himself has become a very close personal friend of mine. I've known him, and I eat in his house. He eats in my house. He has my telephone number. I have his. Even since I became president, I've eaten in his house a couple of times. He's also been to my house. One of the reasons I've eaten in his house is that he lays the best Lebanese food in Accra, and I love Lebanese food. So anybody who invites me to Lebanese food, I go. He happens to be. And this, now, I'd be amazed if somebody like that, Said Fakhri, will think that he needs to pay money to come and sit next to me. This is a man who can get me on the telephone any time of his choosing, who sees me, who comes to my house, and whose house I go to. But nevertheless, the accusation has been made, so it is being investigated. I see part of the problem I have in this very broad commitment that I have made can sometimes, but the genuineness, always the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We will see how the special prosecutor conducts himself. We will see whether investigations that are mounted and serious charges against.
Yeah, the budget came out with some tax cuts that brought jubilation to Ghanaians, especially importers, and of course the Abosokan spare parts dealers. This year, they are calling on you to intervene on what they call huge duties at the ports, and as a result of the imposition of the benchmark value by GRA. On the other hand, reports from GRA this year indicates that last year they were able to exceed their targets in terms of revenue collection. So it means that, in other words, they are doing well. Leakages are being blocked at the ports. Now, government is receiving monies due him. My question is, how are you going to juxtapose the two? Having your government being able to collect the right revenue for you to be able to work with it, and also putting smiles back on the faces of the importers, especially the spare part dealers at Abosokan. Thank you.
This difficult issue between the mobilization of revenue and the position of special interest groups in the economic system is a difficult question. But I'll be surprised if indeed the fiscal reforms that the administration has spearheaded so far were intended to impose additional burdens on. I think this whole business of the benchmark values is something that the Ministry of Trade is looking at to be able to, Ministry of Finance is looking at to see how it reconciles and with the aims of the budget and the tax measures that we have taken. But it will always be a difficult balance that you have to strike. What you need to do to be able to stimulate, putting smiles on the face of people. I think about how you can stimulate economic activity and make people more competitive, and at the same time have the revenue that the state requires to be able to carry out its functions. It's a difficult balance, but it is one that we need to strike. And this particular issue about the benchmark values that the customs apply is one that is in active consideration.
I take it that given the size of the economy, you couldn't have addressed all issues in your opening statements. And so I take it that the issues you raised are on your priority list. However, there's one issue I find not addressed in your address, which I think without it can bring every plan of yours to naught. It's this issue of security. In 2014, a young man known as Alema was alleged to have joined ISIS. In fact, his family confirmed that story. In 2016, security experts revealed on GBC 24, in fact, he showed us evidence of how some members of ISIS were getting in touch with young Ghanaians. Just a couple of days ago, the Ghanaian police arrested some persons with 7 grenades. You didn't address that, Mr. President. How safe are Ghanaians under your watch? Thank you very much.
Terrorism, I think my understanding is, and I think that's the reality for all of us, is something that is menacing all the countries of the world. We've known about outbreaks of terrorism in places far away, but also places very close to us. In Cote d'Ivoire, we saw the effort in Bassam. We've seen the outbreak of terrorist incidents in Burkina Faso. We know also about the movement of jihadist forces in northern Mali and in the Sahel region. Ghana, in principle, cannot be exempt as a potential target. So the security preparedness of our country is an extremely important matter. I can hope that the efforts that are being made by the security agencies to keep a tag on potential targets, potential authors of terrorism, like, for instance, the arrests that have been made, that the security agencies in our country continue to show that level of alertedness that would enable them to nip some of these things in the bud. But I think that as far as our state is compared, especially to many of the states in our region, so far so good on our part. But it is an area where we can never ever let our guards down, and we will have to continue to do all those things, sharing intelligence with others, beefing up our own capability. Also, of course, dealing with some of the more long-term causes in terms of, once again, economic development, employment of young people, rather than having a lot of idle young people on our hands. It's a comprehensive approach that we have to make. But I think that Ghana is stable, Ghana is secure, Ghana is safe, and I'm certainly going to do everything I can to make sure that that image, that reality of Ghana continues. The equipment, the logistics, of resources that the agencies need to work with, we're doing our best to make sure that they have it, and generally sharpen their capability. But I think that the effort that the police have mounted in the last few days shows that they are indeed on the alert and that they are capable of giving us the protection that we all seek.
I'd like to find out how you could have come to the conclusion that the Ministry of Trade has been cleared of the extortion allegations which were made, frivolous or otherwise, when indeed the parliamentary committee has just begun its work. What's the basis of your conviction that the ministry has been cleared of the allegations? And Mr. President, if you would indulge me, I'd like to add half a question. Just half a question, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Can I go ahead? Yeah, Mr. President, what is the status of the Guantanamo Bay detainees who were exported to Ghana in the light of the agreement that the Ghana government had with the United States of America? What is the current status, Mr. President? Thank you very much.
When the alleged scandal, cash for seats scandal hit, I asked the Minister of Trade to give me an explanation to respond to the allegation that had been made in the public space. I was there at the occasion, And nobody had made me aware that there was anything like people buying money to sit next to me or anything. So it came as a surprise to me. And I asked for an explanation from him. And he gave me a full account of the process that had been undertaken, the monies that had been paid, the use of the monies, and I mean, a full accounting. I looked at it, I examined it with others, and was satisfied that it had responded to the allegation that had been made. And I believe the statement he made to me is the very same statement that he made to the committee. And it has been supported by virtually everybody who was involved in the organization of the event. So I believe that I was on firm ground in saying to myself that yes, an allegation has been made, it has been looked into, queries that I put on the matter have been responded to, and I'm satisfied with the quality of the responses that I have got. The fact that there is a public inquiry in it, in itself, to me, does not shake my own conviction that there was nothing untoward had taken place. And that is the reason why I took the position that I did. I took that position before the inquiry was launched. At the time when the parliamentary process was going on, there was a lot of talk about the procedures that the minority had taken, or defects in it and flaws in it and everything. But at the end of the day, I supported the decision taken by the Speaker that come what may, the inquiry should be launched so that there can be no question that anybody is attempting to cover up anything. And people can see in the bright light of day there on television exactly what took place and make up from themselves their own mind whether or not something had gone wrong. And I believe that that is the way we should go in this country. It's the second time it has happened, as I say. In the years before, every effort to get government to crank up the parliamentary machinery to investigate Suba, Jida, Boo, it is that, all fell flat. In some cases, the Speaker didn't even allow those motions to hit the floor, let alone to be debated. I think there's a big improvement on that atmosphere and the way in which some of these things are now being handled. And I'm satisfied about it. I don't have any difficulty.